Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this ranking video. So, this is the first of two ranking videos I'm going to do for my current horror franchise, which for the month of August has been the Friday the 13th franchise. You should be able to see I have all 12 movie individual ranking, or not rankings, reviews up on my channel for all 12 movies. So, I'm going to do my second ranking video for this franchise is going to be, of course, ranking the movies from my least favorite to my favorite, and that'll be dropping in another day or so before the end of August. But today I'm going to go ahead and review. I thought it'd be kind of fun to go ahead and review all the Final Girls in this series. Obviously, Friday the 13th is known for a couple of things: Jason Voorhees, TNA, and Final Girls. That's basically their three pretty much tropes for this particular franchise. So I went through and I kind of not did research, but I kind of put these Final Girls in order in all 12 movies as I sort of see it, in my opinion. For my, I'm not going to say least favorite to favorite because some of the characters I really like that won't be ranked as high, and vice versa, possibly. Um, but it's more based on my criteria of what I think makes a final girl for the Friday the 13th franchise, which I'll be going over shortly. So you kind of have an idea before I start going through my list what a final girl should be and how efficient they are in each of these movies, and if they live up to the sort of final girl trope. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, ranking from 12 to 1 the final girls in all 12 Friday the 13th movies. Now, some of them are kind of, some of them, in some of the movies, it's kind of harder to tell exactly who the final girl is, or which will be part of my ranking for them too, just the vagueness of it. Because there's a couple of movies you could really pick two final girls or even a final guy in a couple movies. But so I'll start with my criteria. So basically, what I'm looking for in this list is a little bit of a character arc from the beginning of the film through the end of the film, although that's probably lower on the list, but it's nice to have a character arc. There are a few on this list that I'll talk about with that. The big, the performance and the acting by the actress that plays these final girls is important. Are they believable or not? Obviously, bravery, confronting Jason, how successful she is, the damage that she inflicts on Jason is a big one, and her looking out and protecting and saving others along the way is important. Overall toughness and just overall final girl worthiness based on what everybody kind of knows it to be and based on those criteria that I just went through. So we're going to go ahead and get this party started here. So the first one, and I got the movies here too, just to kind of as I go through my list. But the first one is going to be Whitney Miller, who's played by Amanda Rigetti from the most recent film that I reviewed on my channel, which is the 2009 Friday the 13th reboot. So yeah, Whitney Miller. This was one of those movies that was hard to know if Whitney Miller was the final girl or if it was Jenna, played by Danielle Panabaker. Because she's actually in more of the movie than Whitney Miller is. I mean, Whitney Miller's in the movie at the beginning and then like the last third, I guess. But there's a big chunk in the middle that she's not in it. Basically, my reason for ranking her at the bottom was she was chained up for most of the movie, and even though she did escape on her own once, she was recaptured by Jason, and then she needed the help of Clay and Jenna in order to free her. Um, Um, and then she also has that stupid line at the end where she does stab him, which is why she's the final girl. She does ultimately lead Jason to his demise in this movie. Go to hell with your mother, I think is the line, which is just, she doesn't deliver it well. And it's really not a well written line to begin with. So badly written line, bad delivery. But yeah, Whitney Miller is going to be my number 12. I'll give a few reasons for each of these final girls, but I'm not going to go too in depth into them. Number 11 might be a surprise to some people, but I'm going to go with Laurie Campbell, played by Monica Keena from Freddy versus Jason, right here. Now this one is simple for me. The reason that she's ranked low like this is even though she's kind of a badass at the end, carrying fire and chopping heads off and stuff. Basically, she's more of a Freddy final girl than she is a Jason one. In fact, she actually teams up with Jason to a certain extent, kind of works with him to defeat Freddy. So it's hard for me to rank her much higher as a final girl when we're doing the Jason Friday the 13th franchise here. Plus, Monica Keena is not a great actor, especially in this movie. I've heard that she's pretty good in some other things, but um, the way she performs the character, her performance just isn't all that convincing for me. Especially the delivery of her cringeworthy lines at the end. Welcome to my world, bitch. Where she's basically like Batmaning it, like you know, welcome to my world, bitch. I mean, it's just, no. So she's not my favorite, but like I said, more of it is because of the fact that she's not really a final girl to Jason. I don't think she confronts Jason or does anything to him the whole time or during the end of that movie. So she's my number 11. Number 10, we're going to go ahead and go to Jason. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. And that's going to be Jessica Kimball, played by Carrie Keegan. Um, so this kind of comes in midway through the movie. Basically, we're not even introduced to her character until like 30 minutes into the movie. And honestly, Steven is the one that's doing more of the confrontation with Jason and trying to convince everybody, including her. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I mean it'd be a little bit more unrealistic if she believed them right away, given their past relationship and stuff. But I don't know. She's not introduced until midway through the movie, and like I said, Steven does as much as she does in terms of damage. I know she's the one that sticks the final dagger into Jason, but yeah, I can't really have her much higher than this. She just doesn't do that much. So yeah, Jessica Kimball from Jason Goes to Hell at number 10. Number 9, we're gonna go with the final girl that I actually like as a character, but I can't. She has to be kind of low, and that's Rennie, from played by Jensen Daget from Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan, which of course is part of the first 8 movie collection of my Blu-ray collection here. Um, this is just a case where Rennie just doesn't do much. She's a sweet girl. She looks good on camera. But as a final girl, she just doesn't do much. She's running and screaming from Jason most of the movie. And she also has these weird hallucinations based on her past experiences she had with Jason. And all she really does in the end to defeat Jason is throw a bucket of toxic waste on Jason, which don't get me started on that. You'll see my frustration with that when I do my movie ranking probably tomorrow here. That video will be up shortly. But yeah, she's a sweet character, a sweet girl, and I don't necessarily think she's played that badly by Jensen Daget. I just don't think the movie wasn't well written, and I'll go into more of that when I get into that other ranking. But yeah, Rennie from Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan is going to be my number 9. Number 8 is going to be Rowan LaFontaine, played by Lexa Doig from Jason X. Um, this is a case where it's kind of half and half. Like she starts out really badass, kick ass the first half of the movie. You know, she confronts Jason face on and uses her smarts by luring Jason into a freezing chamber. She does get stabbed through the torso, though, but ultimately they end up both getting frozen. She has a lot of knowledge about Jason, tries to convince everybody of him, doesn't take any BS. She's a real badass, ultimately. You know, she's just a real badass final girl. But ultimately, she just kind of becomes one of the other characters in this movie as the movie goes on. And also, this is another one of those movies where you could look at 2 final girls. I mean, KM14 or whatever her name is, I have KM. She actually does more damage to Jason up in space than Rowan ever does. Rowan doesn't actually defeat Jason in the end. It's that guy that flies through space as he's coming towards their ship that he ends up sacrificing himself as they burn up in the atmosphere. So yeah, Rowan LaFontaine, though, she's a badass. I have her at number 8 on my list. Number 7, I'm going to go. This might be a shock to some people, and I'll probably get some now not hate comments, hopefully, but some comments. And I'm going to go with Alice Hardy, played by Adrienne King from the original Friday the 13th, is my number 7. Um, they hadn't really developed the final girl trope just yet with this movie, and it kind of shows. I mean, Alice feels more like she's just the last girl left by circumstance, as opposed to being like the sort quote unquote final girl that these movies would come to know. She also kind of gets her butt handed to her by Mrs. Voorhees, who's in her 50s or maybe even early 60s. I'm not, probably 50s in this movie. She gets slapped around and her head driven into the ground by her. And I don't know. I mean, I know she ultimately cut her head off, which is what makes her the final girl, but she got slapped around pretty good. And I don't know. I just not. I mean, she's a good final girl, but I've never been as high on Alice Hardy as some other people. I'm not necessarily going to put her high just because she was in the original movie. Um, so yeah, Alice Hardy is number 7 on my list. So we move to number 6 now, and obviously, well, I didn't show you. Well, obviously, you know what Jason X looks like for number 8. Rowan LaFont and Alice Hardy's part of my 8 pack here. As is my next one, number 6, Pam Roberts, played by Melanie Kinnaman. Now, she gets crapped on a lot by people. I've seen people that have done these rankings have her pretty low, and I don't really understand it. The only thing I can figure is the movie she's in isn't really that liked by a lot of people. Part 5, of course. Um, she plays Pam Roberts in Part 5, A New Beginning. I mean, she's the only girl I can think of that takes a chainsaw to Jason, for crying out loud. Which really takes some toughness and some strength to even be able to lift it and actually put it into him. And then she does the smart thing and throws it at him after it craps out on her. She defends Reggie, and to a certain extent, Tommy, against Jason. She has one bad moment that keeps her out of the top 5, and that's the part where she's laying down as Jason's coming after her, and she doesn't move, whether she's gripped by fear or whatever. It's just a stupid part on her part, a stupid decision. So, but ultimately, I think she's a pretty solid final girl alongside Tommy, and I like Part 5 more than other people, so maybe that's why. But yeah, Pam Roberts is Melanie Kinnaman, and she's also the only final girl that we actually get to see her nipples through her shirt. Not that that really matters in this ranking, but still, I have to throw it out there. So now we're on to the top 5, and the top 5 are all going to come out of here, of course, which is the 8 pack from the first 8 movies. The top 5 was difficult. All 5 of these girls I would trust and follow with my life if I were in a Friday the 13th movie. So number 5 is going to be Tina Shepard, played by Lar Park Lincoln from Friday the 13th, Part 7, A New Blood. Um, she does a lot of damage to Jason. In fact, she does, I think, more damage than any other final girl to Jason. Now, part of that's the fact that she has supernatural powers that none of the other girls have, which is why I have her at number 5 and not higher. It's not her fault, but I have to be fair that the girls that are above this list and even a couple that are behind them had to confront Jason as a regular human without special psychic abilities, and so they get a little bit more of a tick mark or a check mark for me on that. But she isn't afraid to take them on with her carry like powers. Um, She's a strong final girl, but she also is the one that brings Jason back to life before ultimately. And actually, she doesn't even defeat him. Her dad ends up coming out of the lake and grabbing Jason and pulling him down, which, just like Manhattan, don't get me started on that ending. But they had a couple of movies there in a row that they just kind of mailed in the endings of. But yeah, overall, I think Lar Park Lincoln did a good job playing that character. So my number 5 is Tina Shepard from A New Blood. Number 4 is probably my favorite girl character in any of these movies, all 12 of them. She just, as a final girl, I couldn't put her any higher than 4, and that's Megan Garris, played by Jennifer Cook from Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I love that character, and she's high on this list because she's the only one that actually protects children. She's in the movie that actually have children at the campgrounds, and so she does a good job of making sure the children are all right and kind of keeping an eye on them. She also brings Tommy back to life at the end. So when it comes to the criteria of looking out, protecting, and saving others, I mean, she checks all those boxes. Um, and she also takes the boat motor to Jason at the end that ultimately subdues him or stops him, at least for that movie. She's a very sassy character that is tough, no nonsense. She's not necessarily scared. I will say the one thing is Tommy does ultimately save her though, because towards the end of the movie, when Jason's about to kill her, Tommy has to yell out to Jason, and then Jason goes after Tommy because that's ultimately who he wants. So She's kind of saved there, but that's not really her fault. But I do have to bring it up. And the other thing I have to bring up, which isn't part of being a final girl, I think of all of them, she's the easy. Let's just say she's the easiest on the eyes, so to speak. Just absolutely stunningly beautiful, in my opinion. So number four, Megan Garris, played by Jennifer Cook. So now we're in our top three, and this was difficult, but I'm pretty solid with my top three. I'm going to go with Trish Jarvis, played by Kimberly Beck, at number three, from Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Um, so she's really got that very protective mother-like figure, big sister quality to Tommy Jarvis, who's played by Corey Feldman as a kid in this movie. She really takes Jason on face to face. She inflicts damage to Jason. She's tough. She does make a couple of questionable decisions. Basically, the one about going back into the basement, but she also tells Jason what she's going to do to him. Basically, is revenge, and just overall, just a really strong final girl. So yeah, number three, Trish Jarvis, played by Kimberly Beck. I will say part of the reason she can't be any higher is the fact that ultimately, Tommy Jarvis, played by Corey Feldman's the one that actually like chops at Jason after he shaves his head and tricks him. So number two. Now this is a really underrated final girl in my opinion. A lot of people have her. No, I shouldn't say a lot of people. Some people don't like her, and I'm going to get into why and why I disagree with it. But that's Chris Higgins, played by Dana Kimmel, who I actually considered putting at number one. She's obviously from Friday the 13th Part 3, or Friday the 13th 3D. Think about it, she's the only final girl that survives Jason twice. The character of Jason Voorhees, because you got that whole backstory where she gets attacked by Jason a few years earlier, which that's not necessarily a great part of the movie that I like, but still, it doesn't alter the fact that she got attacked by Jason a few years earlier, and the fact that she obviously has to confront him again at the end of this movie. So she's the only final girl to do that. She really has no help at the end, other than that one biker guy that sits up for a minute and distracts Jason long enough. But ultimately, she's the one that has to defeat Jason on her own. She does a lot of damage to Jason. She hangs him, she stabs him, puts an axe in his head. Um, Very brave, confronts Jason to kill him, and no other reason. And the reason that I think people have a problem with her, she ends up looking like she went nuts at the end of this movie as they're hauling her away in a car, and she's kind of laughing hysterically. And you can just tell that she's probably going to be going to the loony bin here. I actually think that's the most realistic portrayal of a final girl, to be honest with you, because if you think about it, this girl who had this backstory that she was living with and nobody else really knew about, where she was attacked by Jason, not only does that same character come back and murder all of her friends in front of her, including her love interest, and almost kills her, but then she's confronted by the same man that she's been carrying around with her for all these years, and she still has to have her wits about her to kill him. I mean, she could easily be number one in my opinion, based on my criteria. I just think she's a really strong final girl. Um, so I know some people are annoyed by her screams and stuff, but I think Dana Kimmel played the part better than anybody else could as Chris Higgins from Friday the 13th Part 3, and she's my number two. But not surprisingly to most people who also have her at number one. Number one has to be Jenny Field, played by Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2. What can you say? She's just the ultimate final girl. She's right up there with Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise and Nancy Thompson from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. She has it all. She has the toughness, the smarts, the bravery. She uses her psychological knowledge and background to trick Jason, keep him at bay, ultimately confronts him physically. And she's also got the best character arc. You heard me talk about character arc as part of my criteria at the beginning of this movie. She starts out the movie as being very fun and kind of a sassy character, kind of a sassy girlfriend to I think it's Paul at the beginning of the movie with the car and stuff when he tries to fix it and the smoke blows in his face. And she's just got some great lines. And then, of course, the scene in the bar with her. Amy Steele's just a fantastic job playing Jenny in this movie. I think her and Dana Kimmel are the two best actresses, at least in these movies, as far as final girls go, in terms of their portrayal. Just a really believable character and a great arc throughout the movie. And yeah, it's definitely got to be Jenny Field, played by Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2. So Guys, that's my ranking of all 12 final Friday the 13th girls. Go ahead and comment down below what you think of my list. Go ahead and give me your ranking, how you would rank all 12 final girls from all 12 of these Friday the 13th films. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for my last video on Friday the 13th, which will be me ranking all the movies from my least favorite to my favorite. Again, please subscribe to my channel to see future review and ranking videos, and stay scared. Thanks. Bye.